Alright people, we are back with our little Fixit network mod tutorial slash mini Lua introduction. Today's topic, arrays, or in Lua essentially tables. So if you search something regarding this, search for tables because that's more correct. So let's go. This is a more complex topic than what we've discussed before, so I came a little bit prepared. So what is an array? So basically arrays are just lists of things, right? So you take a variable, in this case we say shopping list, and then you start it with this, I don't know, squiggly brackets, I call them. And in German geschweifte Klammern. So it's bananas, apples, oranges, kiwi, right? So it's open the brackets, put in your whatever it is, and comma, and then the next value, comma, next value. So it can also be numbers, and you can even mix them in Lua. It doesn't really matter. So what we want to do now is print something. So I need to buy bananas, apples, oranges, kiwi, and let's get rid of the 1, 2, 3 just to demonstrate real quick that you can mix and match. But we will get to that anyway. So what we do now is when we want to print out that list in its entirety, we can just say for I equals 1. So we start at 1, and then the hashtag in front of the array name or table name means number of length of the array, basically. So number of items in there from 1 to the end, and then we just print. And again, there we put in the name of the list or table or array, whatever you want to call it, then a square bracket and the number. So we press again, bananas, apples, oranges, kiwi. If you know, I want to know what's the third item on the list, just simply want to print that, then you can just put that like this, right? So print shopping list 1 would give you the first item on the list, which is bananas. And voila. Cool. And that is the most basic form of a list. So how do you create a list? So you can start off by just adding this stuff manually, like I did here, right? You just open a bracket, type in whatever you want, and there's your list. But oftentimes you don't know what you need to put in or what you want to put in the beginning. So let's get rid of this. Or actually, let's not. Just make some separation. So the first part, we have our list, we print our list. That's what we need to buy. And now we want to make a list of items that we have bought already, right? So we just can generate a new list, call it bought items, and we just put nothing in. So we have an empty table right now. And then we say, okay, we've crossed off the first 3 items of our list, right? Of our shopping list here. So we say for E equals 1, 2, 3, do something. And then we say bought items EI, so bought items 1 in the first iteration, equals whatever is in shopping list in the first place. And then the second one and the third one, so we will add bananas, apples, and oranges from our shopping list into our bought items list. And then if we print that out, we now have I need to buy bananas, apples, oranges, and kiwi, and I bought bananas, apples, and oranges. Great stuff, I would say. So this is one way. So essentially you don't need this loop, right? We could also do that manually. So if we quickly want to do that, let's make it looking better. We can say the first item on my list that I bought was, actually I started from the back, so the fourth item from the bought list, the third item, and the second item. So I bought kiwi, oranges, and apples. And if we do this now, kiwi, oranges, apples. So if you want to do that manually, you can do that this way as well. But wait, there's more. So you could also, if we put our first initial example back here. So now we loop the first item. There's a second way how to write this, and that would be using table insert. And maybe in the beginning this is easier to understand. So if we want to do table insert bought items, we still would need then to either type it manually, but now we want to do it, you know, off of our shopping list. So here we would still put in this. And that would result in the exact same thing, right? But maybe it's easier to understand, which means you just type table insert and then the name of the table that you want to insert something into, and then whatever you want to insert into it. So in this case, the first item and so on, right? So that's another way, doing both the same, exact same thing. One thing though that you cannot do, or not as easily do, is what is the best way? So let's say, okay, let's say we have this list, right? So I bought all of this, and now I see, oh, I forgot to buy kiwi. Actually, I bought kiwi before I bought everything else. So let's say, okay, let's put this. On the way home, I grab kiwi. So we say, oh, quickly put table insert kiwi in there because we are done with our loop already. And now we have kiwi on the list as well. So here comes the thing that you cannot do as easily with the first approach, where we had the number, right? Where we said bought items 1 equals shopping list 1, is putting something on top or in the middle of the list. So if I put this here, as you can see, currently it's bananas, apples, oranges, and kiwi, because table insert puts it at the end. Now, if I add a 1 in between, it puts it on top of the list. Or a 2, then kiwi is on the second part, and would automatically shift down all the other things. Whereas if I wanted to do it the other way, let's put this here, and we wanted to say bought items 2 equals, let's take this, bought items equals shopping list 4. Now we would only have 3 items, right? Still, because, wait, what? Bought items 2, yeah, sorry. Because it replaced apples with kiwi. Just tricked myself real quick. So if we use this, it will not insert it, it will just overwrite whatever is in 2. So if we need to put something in a place specifically inside the table that already exists, then we want to use table insert and then add this parameter to shift it in, slide it in between. Okay. I hope this is somehow understandable so far. I will put all this, or most of it, I prepared a little bit like this, you know, with the first example, and the second, I will put that into the YouTube thingy. Okie dokie. Now, there's even more with tables. That's worth knowing. So far we have just added single things to the list that had no other information, just apple, banana, so a straight list. Now what we can do as well is we can say, okay, we call our table player, and then I say the first item is name Loki, and the second item is health 100, damage 10, and weapon sword. What that allows me to do is I can directly access these things. So if you remember what we did before with the for loop, that would not work in this case. It would just do nothing. I think, at least. So these type of things where it's not just one thing, it's two things per entry. So one is a variable name and one is a value. That's what we call a key value pair. So that's the key, that's the value. Key value, right? That's why usually this could be anything. It doesn't need to be K. It could be key, or it could be A, or nothing sometimes, you see, because the first one is not needed. But let's stick with K and V for key and value. And then we say in pairs player. So we say in the table we have pairs of things. So grab all the pairs from player, and then we can print the key and the value. And for the moment, let's get rid of this and just print that. And what it will do is it prints the key, so name, and then the value to it, which is V. And I added this stuff just so that it looks a little bit better in printing. So the weapon is a sword, the name is Loki, the damage is 10, and his health is 100. Awesome. If we have key value pairs, then what we can do is we can directly access them as well. So we can say, I want to know the player name, right? So whatever you call your table, and I want the attribute name from that table. And then it will print Loki. And I want to know the health, and that's 100. And I can also manipulate these values. So I can say the player health now should be, so this should change. And I want it to be whatever it was before, minus 10, which would take off 10 of the health value. And then we print Loki was hit on the head and now only has 90 health left. So you can see tables in Lua are very, very powerful. So we can just simply print all the stuff, we can access it, we can manipulate it. So instead of making 10,000 different variables, we can just add it in here and bunch them all nicely together, let's say. Okay, cool. As you can see, we can mix and match numbers and whatever. Actually, you can put anything in a table, whole objects, but I think that would go a little bit too far. But I want to go one step further with you and do a little bit inception with this player thing, right? So what we can do as well is this stayed the same, right? Still 100 health, and we still use a sword. But now we have two buffs. So we create a key that is buffs, but the value is an other table. And this table is a simple table. It just says strength and agility. So now it gets a little bit tricky, because if we print this out, as you can see, what I did here is I said if the key is not buffs, then print it this way. Else, I could also put an else in there, but I didn't. So just to show you, it will still print this, but then we get an error, because remember I think I mentioned that in another tutorial, you cannot concatenate a nil value, right? So that will lead to an error. Because I know that, and I know that buffs is an array, I can just do this. I can print everything else, and I say player buffs, and then I make another loop, this time just a simple start from 1 number of items, because basically this buff thing is the same as our shopping list, so just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buffs, right? And then we print these buffs out, and then it says players buffs because we printed that here, and then strength, agility, and if we, I don't know, map and do that again, it will print that buff as well, right? So you can add lists into, so tables into tables, and you can get crazy with this. And just be careful if it's a table. So what we can do as well, just to what do I want here? So if we just print player.buffs, then we'll just say, oh, that's a table. And if you see that, then you know you need to do either this or that to get whatever is in there, because from this we don't know what type of table it is, right? Just as a quick side note. All right, if you are still not completely confused, let's do one more example, right? That's basically the same but a little bit different. So we start again with our base variables, and now we add inventory. And as you can see, square brackets, inventory is a list, and then the first entry, oops, this editor sucks, man. So the first entry within that inventory table is another table, and this time we use key value pairs again. So you can think of this as the first inventory slot, and inside that slot there is an item with a name and an amount, right? And then we come to the second inventory slot. See, still inside the inventory table as a whole, and there's another item with the name copper and the amount 50. So just if we print that, now we can say the player name is Loki, has in its inventory slot 2 an amount of 50 copper, and we know that's copper because inventory name, right? So maybe this is a little bit confusing, I don't know. So just let's print them each one by itself. So print player dot inventory, that gets us to here, and then we need to say slot 1, and then from there we want the name of the stuff that is in slot 1. Yeah, sure. And that prints iron, right? So we can now add stuff to the inventory and just grab that as well. So we just copy this part. Oh shit. And now we make 100, and I don't know, gold, the name. And now if we go inventory slot 3, we see there's gold in there. Copy this. We want to know how much. And there's a 100 gold in that inventory slot number 3. All right. You're ready for one more small thing? We could also do this, right? We could name this one slot 1 and slot 2 and this one slot 3. And then we can just say slot 1 and slot 1. And that does the same thing again. It's like magic, isn't it? I mean, in this scenario, I wouldn't necessarily recommend to do this because to search an inventory is much easier like this. But just saying, you could if you so inclined. And oh, not dot 1. Sorry. You see, that doesn't work anymore if you give something a name, right? So you have to choose what you want, but I would prefer the initial scenario. I just wanted to show you you can go deep with this whole concept. All right, I think that's all I have to say about arrays or tables. I should probably rename that to tables, but now it's too late. The video is made. Cool. Now, next time we talk about functions. And that's not as confusing like arrays for most people, I would say. But it's still a little bit complex topic. So, but I think if you understand arrays, then you have the worst part behind you for an introductory tutorial at least. So I think for most people arrays are more confusing than anything else. Alright, thanks for watching and see you in the next